Hello, ladies and gents. Hagbard Celine here on a beautiful Monday afternoon, and I have my final installment of our saga with Ollie. As it were, this is the video about his Hitchens-Dawkins phase, and in it, all he does is socially signal that he is morally superior and intellectually superior to Hitchens, Dawkins, and Sam Harris. Although for some reason, probably because he says he only read one of his books, Sam Harris is not one of the titular characters in this. Let's just hop right into this and roll the tape.
Welcome to Overanalyzing Vlogs, where I think too much about something. Do I?
It's highly unlikely, Ollie, that you would overthink something, as you are a buffoon wearing your own anus as an intellectual crown of thorns.
If you haven't picked it up from the context clues in the show, I'm not a big believer in God.
Congrats, Ollie. Welcome to Atheism 101. Do you have a point aside from to signal the same way BuzzFeed's "I'm an atheist but I'm not" video did?
And like a lot of atheists, I went through a phase where I was very enamored with the work of Richard Dawkins and Christopher Hitchens.
Ollie, enamored is never a strong, skeptical, intellectual position.
I had a sort of weak belief in God when I was a kid. I used to pray every night, and two of my grandparents were actually ministers.
So, you were a believer who is now trying to distance himself from his presumably now embarrassing religious history. Don't downplay it. Own it like an adult, Ollie.
And I knew that Jesus was somebody very important and that he was born on Christmas, but I didn't really understand his technical role in Christian theology. I wasn't old enough yet to understand that.
But you were well on your way, weren't you, Ollie?
But I read The God Delusion when I was pretty young. It came out in 2006, so I must have been 13.
Oh, 2006, carry the... Oh shit, Ollie, you're younger than me by far. Shit, you're younger than my younger brother. Sorry, I need a moment, folks.
And after that, I started calling myself an atheist, because I realized that if other people didn't really believe, then it was okay that I didn't really believe it either.
Strong conviction is at the heart of old Ollie here. Clearly, he doesn't go with the crowds, or public opinion.
As I got older and into my difficult teenage years, I read a lot more Dawkins, I read a lot of Hitchens. I went through a big Hitchens phase, but I've kind of grown out of that now.
Ollie has since put behind him such childish things in his infinite wisdom of 23 years.
A little bit like how some people go through an Ayn Rand phase, where they think that Ayn Rand is the greatest philosopher in the world, and then you keep reading and you keep studying and you move beyond that. Not everyone does, obviously. I mean, Richard Dawkins is still in his Richard Dawkins phase.
Very mature, Ollie.
And some adults are Randroids, fans of Ayn Rand.
But they're all much stupider than me, because our viewpoints on many issues differ.
But that was my personal journey through it. As I got older and more politically and socially aware,
more mired into social justice education is what he means.
I began to see more the very problematic things that Dawkins says, particularly on Twitter.
Citing Twitter as a source is beginning to wear on me in ways I never once imagined. As for problematic, which he indeed just said, he defends it himself in a separate video. I won't be doing this, as this is the last of Ollie I can take.
And I went back to his work and Hitchens' work and reevaluated it in the context of new writers that I'd read later on, including their critics, particularly Terry Eagleton. His book Reason, Faith and Revolution was a good one for me.
The Terry Eagleton work he just cited was available for free download. I would advise that everyone read how heated, defensive, and full of baseless assertions against both Dawkins and Hitchens this work is.
He attacks the model of religion that Dawkins and Hitchens work from. And also Phil Zuckerman, if you read his book, it's called Faith No More, he interviews people who've given up their religion and talks to them about why. And they're not often persuaded by aggressive argument and, quotes, debate.
So this book of interviews is the be-all, end-all text on deconversions, is it, lad?
So I began to question, I guess, the value of the Dawkins-Hitchens project and the way in which they were engaging in it. And I began to question what they, and some YouTubers like Thunderfoot and Jacqueline Glenn, I began to question what they were really trying to accomplish there.
I would positively love to know what you implied there.
I remember in particular I read the work of some Muslim scholars who were responding to the old Islam isn't a race, therefore criticism of it can't be racist chestnut, which we'll have to go into another time, but reading their responses to Dawkins and what they had to say about that old line made me realise just how racist and racialising Dawkins can be sometimes.
Luckily, we've already covered this in the last 2 videos, but note his particular emphasis on making sure to read Muslim apologetics. I find it very interesting where your particular favoritism lies, Ollie.
And I remember also on Twitter once there were some protests going on in the UK. People were protesting the economy, the state of the economy, and he said, if you don't like the way things are, then don't complain, you should run for Parliament and try and change it. And I remember thinking, yeah, but not everyone can afford to do that. If you want to be an MP in my country, you need to have a lot of money. You need to have a job that pays you a lot of money and that will give you a lot of free time, and not everyone can do that.
Or via a widespread social support group in the form of a grassroots financial movement, but it's okay, just stay in the box like a good boy, Ollie.
To say that people who are complaining should be running and changing is to miss the point. That was the phrase that really stuck in my mind, is that he and Hitchens often missed the larger social point in favour of some smaller or less important pedantic logical point.
Your problem appears to boil down to the fact that they advocate for realistic, applicable social and political change, while you would prefer they spoke in the broad, sweeping ideological terms of peoples and groups and movements.
And that was really the phrase that stuck in my mind, is that you've missed the wood for the trees. Maybe if Christopher Hitchens was still alive and he was on Twitter, I would be as embarrassed about my previous defence of him as I am of Richard Dawkins. I once actually defended Richard Dawkins on Twitter. I forget what the specific goof he made was, but I leapt to his defence, and a while ago I actually went back and I apologised to the person that I defended him to, and was like, yeah, you know what, you were right. He's a real arsehole.
What we have just witnessed was college-level self-flagellation and social signalling. It's amazing.
I never went through a Sam Harris phase. I was never that bad.
You were never that bad, eh, Ollie? Okay.
Probably only because I didn't actually read any of his work until I was in the 3rd or 4th year of university, by which time I was starting to grow out of that phase anyway. I read his book The End of Faith in uni, and maybe that was my inner Dawkins-Hitchens fanboy trying to reassert himself, but I wasn't impressed, to be honest. I found the politics to be pretty reactionary, and I found the philosophy to be pretty shoddy.
A fucking 23-year-old is saying that Sam Harris's philosophy is shoddy. Fuck, Ollie, stop. You're killing me, please.
And knowing that he was quite closely associated with Hitchens and Dawkins was again a factor in me going back and reevaluating their work.
So, guilt by perceived association with those committing thought crime. Of course, Ollie.
I do still agree with them on some things. I mean, I still don't believe in God, so I guess I think that they are right in their conclusion about that, even though some of their arguments aren't always great.
I do love all the specific points and examples you give here, Ollie. It's really good, detailed work.
I do enjoy Christopher Hitchens' journalistic work on Mother Teresa. I still find that interesting. And I think that he raises some interesting points about the implication for privacy and democracy if God were to exist. I don't necessarily agree with his conclusions on that, but I think he advances that discussion in interesting ways. And I guess I'm kind of a little bit with Dawkins about how evolution might pose more of a problem for monotheism than some people think.
Wow, might, Ollie. Evolution might pose a problem. Ollie, you're a moron. I've really tried to keep this at least somewhat civil, but you're simply an inexperienced, unworldly, secluded, sheltered, upper-class moron.
But I am certainly less fond of them than I was, and I guess I'm less intellectually afraid now to say, you know what, sometimes you're really, really wrong about a lot of stuff.
Again, you've made all very good points here, Ollie.
I guess the reason I'm making this video is because I was going through my bookshelf recently and deciding what to keep and what to donate, because I've only got a finite amount of space. And a lot of the things that I'm going to be donating are all these Hitchens books and Dawkins books that I read in my teenage years and got so much out of, and now they don't mean as much to me, and I'm just sort of giving them away.
Oh, I know. At least from what I've read in my comments section, you were kind enough to give them to one of my viewers.
I think that for a lot of people, Dawkins and Hitchens were their first introduction to non-belief, and for that reason it can sometimes be a little daunting to cast them aside and say, yeah, you know what, I can move beyond this.
That's because they were for you, Ollie. This is projection at its finest. It is projection of a life experience that he has admitted to previous in this very video.
And if you're still in your Dawkins or Hitchens phase, then fine, that's okay. Don't forget to read some of their critics, though. And in particular, don't forget to read some of their critics who maybe agree with them that there is no God, but who would take serious issue with the other things that they say.
I have. Now, I challenge you, Ollie, to find me one of their critics who does not employ intellectually dishonest tactics to do so.
So there we are. That's quite a personal video from me. It's a section of my life and the journey I took through it, and maybe we feel like we know each other a little bit better now. Or maybe I'm just reading too much into it. Or am I?
Don't try humor, Ollie. It's just not your strong point. Oh, yeah, we're getting to know you, alright, and perhaps too well. But with that, we're done with Ollie. Shall we all cleanse ourselves in each of our own preferred manners? I must keep the videos this week somewhat short, as I am exceedingly busy. I hope you'll forgive me and know that there are more long diatribes coming in the future. Thank you for watching, thanks to all the new subs, and I will see everyone on Wednesday. Good luck and be safe out there.